Hey, welcome back to Kickin' and Streamin'. It's me, Tammy. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Clint Eastwood film called Richard Jewell. It stars Sam Rockwell, Olivia Wilde, Kathy Bates, who's one of my favorites, Jon Hamm, and a newcomer on the scene, Paul Walter Hauser, as the title character. Um, so, where to begin with this story? So this film is based on true events. It is the Olympic Centennial Park bombing that happened during the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. I was living in Seattle at the time, and I remember watching. It was on the news. I was watching some of the award ceremonies or something like that, and I remember the absolute terror that they were talking about when they said a bomb went off at the Olympics. This was huge, and it really was devastating to me. Two people died, over 100 were injured, and it changed a lot of lives. None more so than Richard Jewell. Now, he was the security guard who alerted the police to the fact that there was a suspicious package. Um, and it turned out to be a bomb, and a bomb went off. And he was ultimately accused of planting the bomb before later the FBI determined that he was not involved and he was no longer a suspect. So that's the background of the story. Um, this film did a really interesting job of portraying a very complicated situation, and how media bias and bias by the government and the dawn of the age of the internet all kind of conspired and came down, and really Richard Jewell kind of got caught in the middle of it. Um, Another person that this affected at the same time was Monica Lewinsky, and this was just the start of that 24-hour news cycle that we're now in. Feels more like, yes, it's 24/7, but sometimes it feels like a lot more, and I'm tired. Anyway, so this is kind of the start of the 24-hour news cycle, and there was a lot that happened. He went from being a hero to, being portrayed as the hero who saved a lot of lives. Many more people could have been killed. And then he became vilified. And based off of preconceived notions. Now, when this movie ended, one of the people who watched the film walked out saying, "A movie brought to you by confirmation bias." And that is really true. He was accused based on the profile of the lone bomber, that someone who sets the either sets a bomb or sets a fire or something, and then wants to be the hero that either saves the lives or, you know, stops the fire or whatever. They want to be the hero. That's that hero complex. And this movie did a really interesting job of portraying a character who, in that moment, was absolutely a hero. He saved lives. There is no doubt about that. Many more people could have been killed. But he was not a perfect man. And I think, in the film at least, he was portrayed as a character who was very socially awkward. And sometimes people, they mean well and they just have a hard time reading signals from people. Very much, he was portrayed, at least in the film, came across as somebody who was on the Asperger scale, definitely very high functioning, was very smart and intelligent, and really wanted to be a law enforcement officer, believed in the power that um, law enforcement had and doing good and all of those things, but then going about it completely wrong, because they just don't understand how to recognize the signs and the inappropriate behavior that they have themselves. Um, and so, again, in this film, he definitely came across as having Asperger's. I cannot confirm or deny that. But it was definitely a very interesting character. I can talk. Character choice. Um, and you know, I really liked how it was portrayed, because no one person is all good and no one person is all bad. They are, there's no black and white. It is all shades of gray. And in the movie, it was definitely portrayed, and I believe at the time, it was very black and white. There was no nuance. He was the hero, and now he's the villain. And this film is definitely going to hype up the calls about fake media, fake news, because when sometimes you get it wrong, there's no way to call it back, especially now when a reputation and news gets passed like that on social media and the internet and just everything. And, definitely it really makes you think about what kind of information is out there about you and what would someone say about you. It was very, very interesting. It also, again, kind of deals with that confirmation bias. Um, Law enforcement are trained to believe in certain things. It's like, okay, we have a suspect. They are a suspect because they've done X, Y, and Z. Somebody could do X, Y, and Z and still, and definitely be a suspect, but they're not the ones that were guilty. And that is what really happened here. They had this assumption about him because he made bad choices, even though he meant well. And the FBI said, oh, this is who we think it is, leaked it, and then it became quite the media circus. So, so it's going to be interesting to see how people are going to receive this film. It was not necessarily portrayed with a right or left bend, but I can see how some people will definitely take it one way or another. Because it was, we're dealing with that now. Police officers who have shot unarmed black men, because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And these mistakes that are happening because of this confirmation bias, that we see somebody who's different than us and therefore different is bad. And that's a real problem. And it is definitely something we need to address as a society. And depending on your personal bias walking into this film, it'll be interesting to see what you think of that. Now, I really liked this film. Clint Eastwood definitely portrayed Richard Jewell as the hero, a very sympathetic character, but did not shy away from his imperfect parts. The rest of the cast was excellent. Sam Rockwell is always delightful to watch. He is a phenomenal actor. And Kathy Bates, she did an amazing job as Richard Jewell's mom, who is just absolutely crushed that she can't protect her son, and she recognizes that her son keeps putting his foot in his mouth and keeps trying, she's like, why are you doing this, and it's just who he is. um a couple of portrayals I did have a problem with, um and there's actually some controversy about Olivia Wilde. As her character, she played the reporter, Kathy Scruggs, I think is her name, who is a real life reporter. She passed away, I guess, in 2001. And there's a big controversy right now happening that the paper wants a ad to be placed in front of, or a disclaimer, I should say, in front of the film because of that. I understand that they took dramatic license, but everything else felt so real that it was like, dude, did we really need to have this dramatic license in a film and telling a story that is already quite so dramatic? Jon Hamm's character he plays the FBI agent, and he is very unsympathetic. And there's that definitely anti-government bias kind of coming across in his portrayal. Unfortunately, he is not at all really nuanced in that, which is too bad because Jon Hamm is a really excellent actor. But I think based on the material that he had, it was kind of it's kind of he had to work with what he was given. In terms of the overall storytelling, it was really well done. There was a few parts where it kind of, got a little slow. It didn't stop. Like some stories, they're going, and then they hit this wall, and then it just falls apart. And that did not happen here. The But there was a few parts where the pacing was a little slow. I did like how they portrayed the ending. Going in, I knew what happened and who was ultimately responsible for that. And they didn't dwell on it. And I liked that because, Richard Jewell needed to have his name restored to him. And I think they did a really good job of that. And not dwelling on not giving the person who is guilty any more time to ruin any more lives. Anyway, that being said, I really did enjoy this film. It was definitely a solid 3.5, almost 4 stars. And, the screenwriting was really good. The acting was phenomenal. The actor who played Richard Jewell did an excellent job of creating a very sympathetic character. And the other supporting cast were just great. There was a couple of things that I was like, why did you do that? But it wasn't enough to make me hate what was going on. And they definitely captured the late 90s really well. Overall, definitely well worth the watch, and hopefully the discussion afterwards that you might have with people, and addressing those issues of confirmation bias, and there is an issue of fake news in this and how it's dealt with, and government overreach, and there's a whole lot of that's just a can of worms waiting to be opened, and for another time. So yeah, go check it out. Definitely worth it. Again, that was Richard Jewell, directed by Clint Eastwood. It comes out this weekend. So if you liked this video, go ahead and click like and subscribe. And whether or not you're streaming from the comfort of your own house or watching something in theater, I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you're watching. And I will see you again here soon. Bye.